Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere cold. Like really cold. The kind of cold where your breath turns into snowflakes mid-air. We're traveling back to the 1700s, into the Arctic Circle, slipping inside a snow brick house to have dinner with an Inuit child. Or actually, you are the child tonight. Now, you might be thinking, life in freezing weather probably means starving and losing a few toes. And, yeah, honestly, you might not survive the first day. But no worries. This family's been doing this for generations. They know how to make hot food appear in the middle of a snowstorm, even if the wind outside could knock over a reindeer. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hop into the comments to tell me what city you're in and what time it is right now. I'll be there waiting. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crawl through the tunnel entrance of the snow house. It's low, tight, like sliding into an upside-down egg. Your coat brushes against the icy walls with soft squeaks, like someone quietly squishing bubble wrap. Inside, the air is instantly warmer. Not tropical warm, but a sturdy, determined warmth, powered by body heat and a whale oil lamp. The room's not big, but it's layered and cozy. The walls, the floor, even the furniture are carved from snow with a kind of quiet elegance. Your parents and two older brothers are already gathered around a circular whale oil lamp. It's your stove, your heater, and your nightlight all in one. Balanced above it is a flat stone pan, gently steaming. Tonight's main dish, seal meat stew. Your mother is expertly slicing chunks of fatty seal shoulder with a knife made from bone, dropping the pieces into the broth. The fat glistens like sunbeams escaping the snow, melting as soon as they touch the hot pan. Your father, who only speaks when absolutely necessary, is inspecting a slab of stone by the lamp, making sure it hasn't cracked. He found it at a frozen spring nearby. Stones that survive hot and cold know how to hold their shape, he says. You reach out for a bowl, hands half frozen, but your mom slaps your mitten away. Clean your fingers first. Even dogs don't lick dirty paws. You roll your eyes, but grab a chunk of soft snow from the wall to scrub your hands anyway. Yep, no soap here, but snow is nature's degreaser. Historians are still debating when exactly Inuit families started cooking on stone slabs. Some argue it dates back to prehistory. Others think it evolved after contact with later explorers. Either way, that bubbling seal stew is all the proof you need that this method works. You finally get your bowl and cradle it in your arms. The warmth is so comforting, you almost want to bury your face in it. You take your first sip, salty, oily, chewy, like fish skin. But honestly, you like it. Your little brother is already gnawing on a fatty chunk, face shining with grease like he just crawled out of a whale. Eat up, your mom says. Wind's picking up tonight. You'll want to be in your sleeping bag early? You nod and scoop another bite. This is the coziest moment of your whole day. Your uncle comes in from outside, carrying a slab of seal, back frozen as solid as a brick. For tomorrow, he says. You look up at the ceiling, where tiny ice crystals catch the lamplight like a reversed Milky Way. The wind outside howls louder now, but inside the snow house, it's softened, more like a cat stretching lazily on a couch. You lean against your brother's shoulder and yawn. You think, maybe tomorrow I'll learn to cut the meat myself. Maybe. You wake up before the sun rises. Not that there's much of a sunrise this far north. It's more like the dark turns into a deep gray that gives just enough light to tell your siblings apart. You're still bundled in your caribou sleeping bag, the fur against your face soft and a little damp. The whale oil lamp has gone out sometime in the night, and the snow walls around you glow faintly with captured moonlight. Your stomach grumbles loudly. But breakfast isn't served, not in the way you might imagine. No sizzling bacon, no toast, and certainly no cereal boxes with cartoon animals. No, your day starts with chewing. Your oldest brother tosses you a piece of dried fish, pipsy, strips of Arctic char that were frozen outside and then air-dried. It's stiff, leathery, and smells like the sea, and maybe something that washed ashore 3 days ago. But it's packed with protein, and you've learned to gnaw it like a seasoned beaver working on a tree trunk. Your mother is already grinding something in a hollowed-out stone bowl, lichen, mixed with fish fat and snow. She calls it a cold mash. You're not super excited, but hey, it keeps you full. Your little brother complains, and she tells him the snow doesn't care if you're hungry. So eat. That mash, by the way, it's one of those historical mysteries. Some anthropologists argue it was only used in the coastal regions. Others think it was more widespread but went undocumented because, well, it wasn't impressive enough for explorers to write home about. But here it is, in your bowl, sticking to your fingers and freezing if you wait too long to eat it. While everyone's chewing and making not-so-happy breakfast faces, your father steps outside. He's going to check the traps. Seal hunting takes time and patience, and also involves standing very still on sea ice while pretending you're just another block of snow. Not very dramatic, but you know if he's lucky today, you might get fresh blubber by sunset. After breakfast, your job begins. Not school, not chores. It's helping with the meat stash, which, in your case, means crawling over to the meat cache, basically a snow mound full of frozen seal bits, and double-checking nothing's been stolen by foxes or nosy birds. You dig around in the snow, fingers getting numb fast. You spot a half-buried seal flipper, still wrapped in its own skin. Perfect. You tug at it. Doesn't move, so you do the classic Inuit kid trick. You sit on it, just your body heat, some wiggling, and a bit of grumbling, and eventually it comes loose with a satisfying pop. You haul it back like a champion and throw it in front of your mom. She doesn't say thanks. She just nods. That's high praise. You warm up by the lamp, which is now lit again, and as your fingers thaw, you sneak a bit of blubber from last night's stew pot. Still warm, still greasy, still, honestly, pretty delicious. Like the Arctic version of buttered popcorn. Kind of. Don't eat too much, your mom warns. You'll get sleepy before the dogs are fed. Ah, the dogs. Your family's sled dogs are how you get anywhere in winter. They're loud, smelly, and smarter than some humans. One of them, Nuka, follows you everywhere, especially when you smell like leftover seal oil. You sneak him a tiny bit, and he winks at you. Or maybe he's just got snow in his eye. Who knows? Outside, the wind picks up. It rattles the snow house walls like someone shaking a sugar dome. But they hold strong. The sound is kind of soothing, actually. Like waves, but colder. You think about dinner already. There's still some dried walrus meat from last week. You hope your mom makes it into a stew. Maybe she'll add some of those weird sour berries you picked last summer and thought were poison. Turns out they just taste like poison, but are full of vitamin C. Score. Historians still argue over how much fruit or greens Inuit kids actually ate. Some say it was rare and seasonal. Others claim families had clever ways of preserving summer harvests. But here in your snow house, Truth is simple. If it doesn't kill you and fills your belly, it counts as dinner. You head outside just for a minute. The snow squeaks under your boots, and your breath hangs in the air like tiny ghosts. You squint at the horizon. Everything's blue and white and silent. And then your brother throws a snowball at your head. Direct hit, you laugh. You chase him. And for a moment, being a kid in the Arctic feels like being a kid anywhere else, just with better snow. You're back inside now, cheeks red from the cold and your eyelashes frosted like tiny icicles. You shake the snow out of your hood, and it melts in little drops on the caribou skin floor. The snow walls around you glisten, like someone dusted the inside of your house with crushed glass. The fire, well, there is no fire. There's just the quillick, that shallow stone oil lamp, burning seal fat with a wick made of Arctic cotton grass. It gives off more warmth than you'd expect from something so small. And the smell? Earthy, smoky, greasy, comforting in a weird way. You settle down to help with the midday task, rendering fat. It's not as gross as it sounds. Or, okay, it kind of is. You sit there holding a hunk of seal blubber while your mother slices it up into tidy cubes. She drops them into a soapstone pot to melt slowly into oil, and you can't help but be hypnotized watching it turn from solid to shiny golden puddles. Why render fat? Because it's the MVP of the Arctic kitchen. Cooking oil, lamp fuel, skin moisturizer, boot sealant, and sometimes snack. You scoop a little with your finger and taste it. Salty, rich, and weirdly satisfying. It's like the 1700s version of Nutella, if Nutella were meat-flavored and room temperature. Across the snow house, your grandmother hums while weaving sinew thread. She's working on boot repairs, sealskin muclucs that have seen more snowdrifts than you can count. She doesn't speak much, but she watches everything, like a polar bear disguised as a sweet old lady. Once, she told you a story about a time she ran out of food midwinter and had to survive on half-frozen fish eyeballs and chunks of old boots soaked in oil. You laughed. She didn't. And now you eat your fish eyeballs with deep respect. Outside, your uncle is working on the dog sled. You hear the scraping of bone tools on wood, a sound as common as birdsong in warmer places. The sled isn't just transportation, it's survival. The runners are greased with a mix of moss and animal oil to keep them slick, and the bindings are made from rawhide, not a single metal nail in sight. Everything is flexible, strong, and built to bend with the snow, not against it. Inside, you help your mother pack up some dried meat and rendered fat into a sealskin pouch, an Arctic lunchbox. Your father will take it when he checks the fishing holes later. You sneak a dried clam while she's not looking. It's chewy, like trying to eat a rubber band that lived in the sea. Historians still puzzle over how Inuit families stored their food in such an unforgiving climate. Some say they buried it in snow pits lined with moss. Others insist families used elevated platforms to keep things away from foxes and nosy children like you. Honestly, both methods are true, and both fail when a polar bear gets hungry. You spend the afternoon checking the ice hole near the camp. Fishing through ice is the definition of patience. You squat over the hole, holding a bone-handled line baited with whatever guts you had left from last week's catch. You wiggle it, you wait, you shiver. You imagine the fish laughing at you from below. Eventually, your line tugs. You yank it up. Victory! A small, glistening Arctic cod flaps around on the snow. You beam like you just discovered fire. Your little sister claps. Your uncle nods, says, "Good." That's dinner for someone. Not you, though. The elders eat first. That's the rule. On the way back, you chew on a piece of seal jerky. It's hard as a rock and tastes like regret, but it's fuel. Food isn't pleasure here, it's power, warmth, survival. But when you catch your own fish, that's pride. That's a feast, even if it fits in your mitten. You arrive home as the sky dims again. Your stomach growls like a sled dog, and your fingers are stiff from the cold. Your mom pulls a stone pot off the fire. Tonight, it's a stew, blubber, fish scraps, a handful of dried moss, and maybe a surprise clam or two if you're lucky. She ladles it into a bowl and hands it to you. Steam rises, your nose runs, and you dig in. It's salty, oily, and perfect. Later, you sit near the lamp with your siblings, licking your fingers clean. Someone dares someone else to eat a frozen fish eye. Someone does. Everyone cheers. Your grandmother shakes her head. Not because she disapproves, but because she's already eaten too. The stew settles warm and heavy in your stomach. You lie back on a pile of fur bedding, the kind that still smells faintly like the animal it used to be, slightly musty, a little salty, but strangely comforting. It's not clean by modern standards, but it's homey, lived in, real. Your little brother mumbles something in his sleep beside you. He's curled up like a seal pup, one foot sticking out of the covers. You nudge it back in. No point losing a toe to frostbite inside the house. You stare up at the snow ceiling above, glowing faintly from the flickering lamplight. There's a crack in the dome that always looks like a smiling face if you squint, and tonight it smiles a little wider. Maybe it knows what's coming. Maybe it's just snow doing snow things. From outside, the wind picks up. It howls like it's telling you ghost stories. Somewhere, the dogs start barking. You're not sure if it's at the wind, a passing fox, or just because they enjoy chaos. Wolves? Your sister whispers wide-eyed. Probably your breath, you whisper back. She kicks you, gently. It's storytelling time now. Not the kind with written books and comfy chairs, but the kind where the eldest in the house starts talking and no one dares interrupt. Tonight, it's your grandmother's turn. She clears her throat like she's about to lecture the sky. She starts with a tale about Sedna, the sea goddess who lives at the bottom of the ocean, combing her long hair with fish bones. You've heard it before, but it never gets old. According to the story, Sedna controls all the sea animals. If you disrespect her by wasting food or acting proud, she withholds the animals. No seal, no fish, no dinner. Once, your grandmother says, a man caught more than he needed and threw the extra meat to the dogs. That winter, no one saw a seal again until he apologized with a bone knife through his own hand. You shiver? Not from the cold this time. Of course, historians aren't quite sure when exactly the Sedna myth emerged. Some say it's thousands of years old, passed down in songs and whispers long before ink touched paper. Others think it changed over time, shaped by European contact and Christian influence. No one agrees. But you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about your leftover seal jerky and whether Sedna's watching you not eat it. After the story, someone starts humming a tune. You don't know all the words, but you recognize the rhythm. It's part lullaby, part weather report. The lyrics talk about snow as if it were a cousin and the stars as neighbors. In a place where everything is connected, nothing is just scenery. The land is a person. The sea is a mood. Outside, the wind sighs softer now. The dogs have calmed. The snow's hush returns. Your mother passes around a tiny treat, a piece of frozen cloudberry mashed with seal oil, and a hint of something sweet, maybe fermented fish juice, maybe magic. It's tangy and odd, like if yogurt and pickles had a baby, but you savor every bite. It's dessert, 17th century style. Don't eat too much, she warns. You'll wake up thirsty. She's right. There's no fridge, no filtered water, just a pouch of snow melted near the lamp, and maybe a boiled snowball if you're lucky. Too much salt, and you'll be licking your mittens at midnight. You feel yourself drifting, full and heavy. The lamp flickers. The dome hums quietly above. And just as your eyelids droop, your brother pipes up. Did you know Dad said he once ate narwhal brain? Your eyes snap open. What? Yeah, he nods, very serious. He said it's squishy and makes you dream of swimming. Your sister looks horrified. Your grandmother looks amused. Your mother looks like she regrets not eating alone. Truth is, narwhal brain was eaten, sometimes delicately scooped straight from the skull. Historians think it was considered both a delicacy and, on certain occasions, medicine for clarity and strength. Or maybe that's just something dads say to mess with kids. You laugh, it echoes softly in the snow walls, and then you close your eyes again. The snow house breathes. The wind outside snores. You're not just a kid falling asleep. You're a kid falling asleep at the top of the world. You wake up to the sound of something being scraped. Not loudly, just enough to tickle your ears out of sleep. A soft scritch-scritch, rhythmic and steady, like someone carving wood or whittling away at ice. Your eyes blink open slowly. It's still dark outside, though outside is mostly theoretical. The sun won't rise for a while, not really. Winter's light here in the Arctic isn't about brightness. It's about suggestion. A faint blue glow that creeps in sideways sometime around noon, like it's shy. You sit up, wrapped in layers of furs that smell like home, smoked seal, wet wool, and something vaguely fishy that you've stopped questioning. Across the snow room, your father is kneeling next to a flat slab of packed ice, carefully using a curved bone blade. He's making breakfast, kind of. What he's actually doing is preparing the day's rations. Dried, frozen, tough as boot, leather seal meat, shaved into thin ribbons with the practiced skill of someone who's done it 1,000 times and will do it 1,000 more. You crawl over and join him. He hands you a sliver. It's cold enough to make your teeth throb, and it tastes like meat and ocean and endurance. But it's food, and it'll keep you warm. Eat slow, he says. You burn more calories chewing than digesting. You laugh, then realize he's probably not joking. Outside, the dogs are being fed too. It's a whole operation. Dogs aren't pets here. They're transportation, hunting partners, alarms, and sometimes, awkwardly, warmth. But they need food too. And in the dead of Arctic winter, that means digging into the icebox. Literally, a pit where meat was stored and frozen by nature itself. Today, it's frozen fish heads and whale scraps. Lucky dogs. You watch your mother mix something in a stone bowl. It's a porridge of sorts, if porridge could include snow, fish oil, and ground-dried roots. Some families even added bits of caribou tallow or rendered blubber to make it richer. You once asked if it tasted better with sugar, and your uncle laughed so hard he cried. Truth is, Inuit diets in the 1700s were hyper-local and extremely adapted. There were no imports, no spice racks, and definitely no food pyramids. Yet people survived and even thrived on what seemed like an impossible menu to outsiders. What you didn't have in variety, you made up for in ingenuity. Take iguanak, for example. Fermented meat buried underground for months until it reaches that just right level of, well, let's call it acquired taste. Some early explorers described the smell as a challenge. Others said it was a religious experience. But for Inuit families, it was just Tuesday. And what did kids think of it? Well, if you were lucky, your taste buds adjusted before your nose complained. But some kids, like your cousin, pretended to like it just to impress the elders. He once ate 3 helpings in a row, then spent an hour lying face down in the snow, cooling off his soul. And yes, historians are still debating the origins of Igunak, whether it began purely out of necessity or was also considered a rite of passage. Some say it was only for adults. Others claim children were encouraged to try it young to train their palates. No consensus yet, but your cousin is firmly in the please no more Igunak camp. After breakfast, there's work to do. Your mother sets you to scraping caribou hides with a rounded bone scraper. It's not fun, and it doesn't smell great, but it's part of the rhythm of life, eating and preparing, warming and waiting, surviving and storytelling. Every chore has purpose, even the ones that seem dull. While you work, you hum one of the older songs. It's wordless, just a pattern of breath and tone passed down like recipes, except instead of flavor, it carries memory. Some say these melodies were used to remember hunting grounds. Others say they were lullabies with lost lyrics. You don't know, but they make the work feel lighter. Later, you'll help gather snow. Not for fun, for water. Snow has to be melted and strained. Yes, strained, to get the little bits of grit and soot out. The first time you drank unstrained snowmelt, you coughed for 5 minutes and blamed a ghost. Your sister still brings it up. The midday light arrives briefly, casting a pale indigo hue over the landscape. It's beautiful in a lonely sort of way. Everything looks both close and far away at the same time. The snowdrifts stretch like frozen waves. Somewhere, an ice ridge cracks with a sound like thunder. Nature's version of turning over in bed. You take a moment. You breathe in air so cold it stings your nose, then feels warm inside your lungs. It's the kind of cold that makes your thoughts clearer, sharper, hungrier. Tonight, there'll be more seal, maybe a bit of boiled fish. If the weather holds, your uncle might bring back some ptarmigan. If not, more jerky. And if you're lucky, maybe, just maybe, a sliver of iguanak. For the memories, not the flavor. You know how when you're a kid, sometimes adults make you eat things you absolutely don't want, insisting it's good for you? Well, here in the Arctic, sometimes those things are actually good for you. Take whale blubber, for example. It's that thick, greasy stuff that seems like it would just sit heavy in your stomach. But really, it's pure energy wrapped in a layer of ancient ocean survival. Your mother slices a piece off a block of frozen blubber, handing it to you like a precious gem. It's cold and hard, but when you bite down, it softens and melts slowly in your mouth. The taste? A little fishy, a little salty, and kind of like chewing on the sea itself. Now, you might be wondering, why eat blubber? Isn't it just fat? And here's the kicker. In those harsh winters, fat is life. You burn calories just trying to stay warm, so that extra energy-packed blubber keeps you moving. It's like nature's version of an energy bar, except way messier. Your dad jokes that if you eat enough blubber, you'll float like a seal in the water. You're not sure if he's serious or just trying to get you to eat your dinner, but either way, you're not arguing. The funny thing is, back then, no one was counting calories or tracking macros. Your whole diet was based on what was available, what you could hunt or gather, and how to make it last through the long, cold months. There's no supermarket aisle with blubber snacks or Arctic diet labeled tubs. It was all raw, real, and sometimes a little gross in the best way. Interestingly, some historians argue that eating raw or minimally cooked blubber provided essential vitamins that you wouldn't get from other foods. Others suggest the practice evolved purely because blubber was abundant and stored well in the cold. The debate goes on, with no clear winner, but your family isn't waiting around for an academic decision, they just eat it. Speaking of eating habits, you might be surprised to learn that Inuit kids sometimes had special bedtime treats. Tiny morsels of dried fish or bits of seal fat meant to help them sleep through the night. That's right, no warm milk or cookies here, but a handful of preserved meat to settle the stomach and keep energy up during those freezing dark hours. You also discover that some families even used a little fermented fish oil rubbed on the gums to soothe teething babies. Not exactly your typical baby care story, but it worked. The strong smell probably kept other animals away too. When it comes to daily life, your role isn't just to eat well, but to learn by watching. Kids are apprentices to survival. They observe how adults butcher seals, build igloos, track animals in the snow, and prepare meals that would confuse anyone raised on pizza and pancakes. You notice the delicate balance in the family's routine between respecting the environment and using its resources to the fullest. Nothing goes to waste. Every bone, every piece of skin, every bit of fat has a purpose. But of course, not everything is serious and survival driven. Sometimes there are small, funny rituals too, like how your uncle insists on singing a silly hunting song before every meal, making everyone chuckle, even if the cold is biting. All this makes you realize the Inuit diet wasn't just about food, it was about culture, connection, and living with the land rather than fighting it. As the day edges towards evening, you feel a quiet excitement. The family will gather again, sharing stories and food, ready to face another cold night together, fed, warm, and connected. Hey, now that you've got a little taste of blubber life, let's talk about one of the most curious bedtime snacks you might never have imagined: seal liver. Yeah, I know, not exactly a sweet treat, but bear with me. This was a prized delicacy, rich in nutrients, especially vitamins A and D, which were crucial for survival during those endless, dark winters. You take a small slice, raw or lightly frozen, and it melts in your mouth, offering a buttery texture that's surprisingly smooth for something called liver. You might be thinking, why would anyone, especially a kid, want to eat that? Well, Inuit kids often did it because, like it or not, their parents knew this was how you stayed healthy when the sun barely showed its face. The nutritional punch from organ meats was far beyond what simple muscle meat could provide, making it a staple of the diet. Interestingly, there's a bit of a historical debate about how much raw liver was eaten versus cooked. Some anthropologists argue that raw liver was favored to preserve vitamins that cooking destroys, while others suggest cooking was preferred when firewood was available. Given the scarcity of fuel, it probably varied from family to family, season to season. Now, here's a little tidbit that might make you chuckle. Kids often learn to appreciate these grown-up tastes through some good old-fashioned peer pressure. Imagine a young cousin daring you to eat a chunk of frozen liver while everyone else pretends it's the most delicious thing in the world. Spoiler, the taste buds don't always cooperate, and you might find yourself making some less than glamorous faces. At bedtime, the ritual sometimes included a small cup of muktak, a delicacy made from whale skin and blubber, chewed slowly to savor the natural sweetness hidden beneath its bland exterior. Muktak was considered a perfect night snack to settle the stomach and keep energy steady for those long, cold nights. What's really fascinating is how this entire food system tied into the community's deep respect for the animals they hunted. Every part was used, nothing wasted, and this respect extended into bedtime rituals too. You might find elders telling stories of the spirits of the animals, reminding kids to honor what they ate. A kind of spiritual bedtime story with a practical twist. As you're lying down on your sealskin mattress, you hear the soft murmur of conversations and the crackling of a small lamp fueled by seal oil. It's quiet, but full of life. The smells of dried fish and lingering smoke weave through the igloo's air like a comforting blanket. And just when you think bedtime snacks couldn't get any more unusual, there's also a tradition of chewing on spruce resin gum. Not exactly sweet, but it helped keep teeth clean and freshened breath in a place where toothbrushes didn't exist. Imagine that, an ancient Arctic chewing gum that also served a practical purpose. Pretty clever, right? Of course, not all historians agree on how common these bedtime habits were. Some believe they were widespread, others think only certain groups or families practiced them. It's one of those we may never know for sure moments in history, but you get to imagine it all. So, as you drift toward sleep, your stomach full of rich, unusual foods, you're part of a tradition that's thousands of years old, a rhythm of survival, respect, and a bit of humor mixed in. The Arctic night is long, but your body is ready to face it. You wake up slowly, stretching your limbs under the thick sealskin blankets that shield you from the biting cold outside. Morning in the Arctic means darkness most of the year, but you've learned to adjust your internal clock to the rhythm of the land. Today, you're curious about the special breakfasts Inuit kids had before heading out to play or help their parents. Unlike the sugary cereals or pancakes you might expect, breakfast here is hearty and simple, made to fuel you for the day's adventures or misadventures. Your mom hands you a small bowl of dried fish mixed with powdered snowberries. Yes, berries that have been preserved through the winter. It's a combination of salty and slightly sweet, a bit like a natural trail mix, though without the convenience packaging. Dried fish is a big deal. It can last for months and provides a ton of protein and energy. It's often soaked briefly in cold water to soften it before eating, making it easier to chew. You might grimace a little, but then remember that this is what keeps your family going when fresh food is scarce. You also learn about the use of char, a cold water fish similar to salmon, but smaller and easier to catch. Char was often a breakfast staple, eaten either raw or lightly smoked. Eating raw fish might sound a little intimidating, but in this part of the world, it's a way of life. You notice something interesting. The traditional breakfasts weren't just about nourishment. They were also about connection. Eating the same food as your family, learning to appreciate the flavors of the land, was part of growing up Inuit. One curious fact you pick up is that some kids had a habit of chewing on willow bark in the morning. No, it wasn't for fun. It was a natural way to freshen breath and even help with digestion. Nature's own minty gum, if you will. Meanwhile, historians are still debating how much of these breakfast traditions have changed over time, especially with modern influences creeping in. Some believe that pre-20th century Inuit meals were more uniform and consistent, while others suggest there was quite a bit of variety depending on location and season. You find yourself imagining the hustle and bustle of a small igloo village at dawn, parents preparing food, kids helping out, and the faint sound of sled dogs waking up in the distance. The scent of smoked fish and drying seal skins fills the crisp air. By the time breakfast is finished, you feel ready for the day, strong, nourished, and connected to a culture that has survived and thrived in one of the harshest environments on Earth. And just before you set off, your mother gives you a small piece of dried seal fat, a quick energy boost for the long day ahead. It's not the kind of snack you'd find in any modern lunchbox, but it's perfect for the Arctic. Hey, so now that you're fueled up with that hearty breakfast, let's wander into a more unusual part of the Inuit food story. How kids sometimes dealt with sweets, or rather, their version of sweets, in the 1700s. Because, spoiler alert, the Arctic didn't exactly have candy stores. Imagine this. You're a kid craving something sweet, and instead of candy bars, your treat might be tiny frozen berries called crowberries or cloudberries, picked carefully during the short Arctic summer and then dried or frozen to last through winter. They're tart, a bit wild, and kind of like nature's gummy candy if you squint your eyes and imagine really hard. But here's the twist. These berries weren't just about flavor. They packed vital nutrients and antioxidants, and eating them was almost like a mini celebration of summer in the endless dark months. You savor the occasional handful, feeling a little burst of energy and a reminder of warmer days. Interestingly, not all Inuit communities had access to these berries. Some in the far north relied more on dried seaweed or lichens, which might sound strange as snacks, but they provided trace minerals essential for health. It's a reminder that sweet was more about what the land could offer rather than sugar crystals. You also learn about a curious, almost ritualistic aspect. Sometimes dried fish or seal meat was lightly dipped in fat or blood to give a different texture or flavor, kind of like an ancient dipping sauce. Not exactly a dessert, but a special treat nonetheless. Historians still debate how widespread these sweet snacks were, and how much trade between groups influenced what kinds of treats kids might get. Some suggest there was more variation than we realize, depending on where families traveled or traded. You catch yourself wondering what it would feel like to be a kid in that world, dreaming about sweets not found in stores, but gathered carefully from the land or sea, treasured for their rarity and meaning. As you think about these modest Arctic treats, you realize that sweetness wasn't just a flavor. It was a symbol of survival, hope, and the preciousness of even the smallest pleasures in a tough environment. Hey, now let's drift into a topic that's part food, part bedtime routine. The role of warm drinks, or more accurately, how Inuit kids dealt with liquids before bed in the 1700s. Spoiler alert, there was no hot chocolate or bedtime milk here. You sit curled up in the igloo, watching the adults prepare a simple, warming broth made from boiled seal or whale fat mixed with a bit of dried seaweed or herbs when available. This broth is thick, oily, and packed with nutrients. It doesn't exactly smell like your favorite soup back home, but in the cold Arctic, it's like a liquid hug, warming you from the inside out. You might raise an eyebrow thinking, fatty broth before bed, won't that keep me awake? Well, here's the interesting part. The fat slows digestion, so it actually helps you feel full and calm, perfect for drifting off in a cold environment where staying warm is a priority. Sometimes water was scarce or frozen solid, so this broth was one of the few ways to get any liquid inside your body without risking hypothermia by drinking ice-cold water. In some regions, snow was melted and infused with herbs or animal fat for flavor and warmth. There's a fascinating side note here. Some scholars argue about how much these broths were seasoned or flavored. Since fuel for boiling water was precious and limited, it's likely that taste was secondary to practicality. But maybe a pinch of whatever was on hand helped make it more palatable. Now, As you lie on your sealskin mat, sipping the broth slowly, you might hear stories about the medicinal properties of certain herbs added to the drink. Some elders claimed these helped with digestion or even encouraged good dreams. Whether or not that's true, it sure adds a cozy, mystical layer to the bedtime ritual. Interestingly, there are records suggesting that some Inuit groups would chew on small pieces of moss or bark during the night to keep their mouths moist. Not exactly your bedtime chamomile tea, but it did the trick in a dry, cold climate. Historians still debate exactly how consistent these warm drinks were across different regions and families. But one thing's clear: the ritual of a warming liquid was an important part of settling down after a long, cold day. So, with your belly warmed and your mind soothed, you feel yourself slipping closer to sleep, wrapped in the quiet comfort of your family's ancient routine. Hey, let's wander into a slightly different angle. How bedtime stories and food sometimes blended in Inuit culture during the 1700s. Imagine you're sitting by the flickering light of a seal oil lamp, the igloo's walls softly glowing, while your parents tell you tales about the animals whose meat you just ate. You listen as the story unfolds about the great whale spirit who watches over hunters and ensures the balance between humans and nature. These tales weren't just for entertainment. They were lessons wrapped in mystery, helping you understand the respect owed to every part of the animal. Food was often woven into these stories. For example, when the tale mentioned the seal's thick blubber protecting it from cold, your parent might hand you a small piece of dried blubber to nibble on, making the lesson deliciously tangible. You realize that these stories help children connect emotionally with their food, turning survival into something almost sacred. It's not just about filling your belly, it's about understanding your place in a vast, harsh world. Interestingly, some historians debate whether these storytelling traditions varied significantly between Inuit communities or if there was a shared narrative culture. Oral history, by nature, is fluid and adaptable, making it hard to pin down exact details. Sometimes the stories included practical advice about which parts of the animal were best eaten at different times or how to prepare certain dishes. It's a gentle reminder that knowledge passed down wasn't just folklore, but also survival strategy. And here's a fun fact. In some regions, kids were taught to imitate the sounds of animals as part of these bedtime rituals, helping them learn hunting skills in a playful way. Imagine a group of children quietly practicing seal calls to prepare for their future roles. So, as the story drifts on, blending food, spirit, and survival, you feel a quiet comfort knowing that these bedtime moments were about more than just sleep. They were about belonging. Hey, now let's explore a slightly unexpected topic: how Inuit kids in the 1700s might have dealt with the rare treat of sugar, or more precisely, their near total lack of it. Because, surprise, sugar as we know it didn't exist in the Arctic for a long, long time. You picture yourself as a kid hearing stories about faraway lands where people sprinkle crystals of sweetness on everything, from bread to drinks. Here, however, your sweetness came straight from nature, like those frozen berries you tucked away for special moments, or from the natural sweetness in dried fish or seal fat, which might sound odd, but actually has subtle flavors that can surprise you. Sometimes sugar or honey was introduced through trade with European explorers or whalers, but it was rare and precious. You imagine how exciting it must have been to taste something so foreign and sweet. Maybe a tiny spoonful of molasses, shared carefully by adults who understood its rarity. Interestingly, scholars still debate how much influence European contact had on Inuit diets in the 1700s, especially regarding sugary foods. Some think it was minimal and localized. Others believe the impact was more widespread and rapid. You also learn that because sugar was scarce, Inuit kids grew up with a palate attuned to natural flavors rather than artificial sweetness. This shaped not only their diet, but also their preferences and traditions around food. One quirky detail: some Inuit would chew on tree resin or pine sap, which, while sticky and resinous, offered a mild sweetness and texture somewhat like chewing gum. A far cry from candy, but a neat, natural alternative. This absence of processed sugar didn't mean life was dull. On the contrary, it made you appreciate the natural bursts of flavor found in every bite, from the tang of berries to the richness of seal fat, turning each meal into a small celebration. So, as you imagine a childhood without candy jars or sugary cereals, you gain a fresh appreciation for how different and yet connected our food worlds can be. Hey, now let's drift toward an intriguing aspect of Inuit life in the 1700s, the ways kids learned about food preparation and survival skills through hands-on experience. Because in the Arctic, cooking wasn't just a chore, it was a vital part of growing up. You picture yourself shadowing your parents or older siblings, watching closely as they prepare dried fish or render seal fat. Maybe you're handed a small knife, or rather, a carefully crafted ulu, a traditional curved blade made from stone or bone, and encouraged to help cut meat into thin strips for drying. It's a slow, patient process. You learn to listen to the sounds and smells, to tell when the fish is just right to hang or the fat is ready to be stored. There's a rhythm to it, almost like a dance, passed down through generations. Interestingly, some historians argue about how much children were directly involved in food preparation at different ages. While it's clear they helped, the exact roles might have varied based on community size, family structure, and even gender. You also discover that learning to preserve food was a serious skill. In the harsh Arctic environment, spoilage meant disaster. So kids weren't just learning to cook, they were learning how to ensure survival through meticulous care and knowledge. One quirky tidbit: some kids learned to identify edible seaweed and mosses by taste testing tiny bits under supervision, turning what might seem like a foraging trial into a game of discovery. This hands-on learning was more than survival training. It was a way to bond, to feel connected to the land, the animals, and your family. Food preparation stories became part of your growing identity. So, as you imagine yourself carefully slicing fish or sorting dried meat, you realize that every small action in this ancient kitchen was a step toward becoming part of a resilient, enduring culture. Hey, now let's gently explore one of the quieter parts of Inuit kids' nights in the 1700s, how the environment and daily routines shaped their sleep, especially after a day filled with hunting, gathering, and of course, eating. You're settling into your sealskin bed, the igloo walls thick with snow outside, muffling the Arctic winds. The air inside is cool, but cozy, warmed by a small seal oil lamp casting a soft, flickering glow. It's not quite bedtime yet, but the gentle hum of your family winding down is a soothing lullaby. You notice how food plays a subtle role here. After a big meal of fatty seal or whale, your body feels heavy and content, making your eyelids droop. The fat-rich diet actually helps keep you warm through the night, working like a slow-burning fire inside. Interestingly, sleep patterns here weren't just about nighttime rest, but adapted to the extreme Arctic daylight cycles. During the endless winter darkness, it's easier to fall asleep, but in summer, When the sun barely sets, people often napped or adjusted sleep in smaller chunks. Historians still debate how strictly these cycles shaped Inuit sleep habits. You also learn that the calming routine before sleep might include sipping on warm broth or quietly listening to elders telling low-key stories about the day's hunts or the spirits of animals. The calm, gentle sounds helped ease the mind, much like white noise or a soft fan, nature's own sleep aids. One fun fact: some Inuit children used simple tools like a small bone whistle to signal if they woke up in the night, a subtle way to communicate without disturbing others. So as you nestle deeper into your bed, warmed by food, family, and tradition, you feel the peaceful rhythm of an ancient way of life guiding you gently toward rest. Hey, now let's slowly draw this cozy journey toward its final chapter, reflecting on how the simple, nourishing bedtime foods of Inuit kids in the 1700s were more than just meals. They were a vital thread in the fabric of survival, culture, and comfort. You imagine yourself as part of this long-standing tradition, where every bite of dried fish, every sip of warm broth, and every shared story under the soft glow of a seal oil lamp carried weight beyond hunger. These foods helped you stay warm in the unforgiving Arctic, gave energy for the long nights, and connected you deeply with your family and environment. Even today, historians and anthropologists debate details about these meals and rituals, like which exact herbs might have been used or how food scarcity shaped choices. But what remains clear is the intimate relationship between food, culture, and the rhythms of daily life in this unique place. You realize that for Inuit kids, bedtime food wasn't about sugary treats or fancy dishes. It was about tradition, warmth, and the subtle comfort of routine. It was a gentle reminder that no matter how harsh the world outside, inside the igloo, there was care and connection. As you settle down, you feel the quiet strength of a culture that turns survival into ritual, turning ordinary moments into sacred ones. And now, as you prepare to drift off, you carry with you a sense of calm and a glimpse of a world where food and family are the heart of the night. Now, slow your breath, feel the softness of your bed, and let your thoughts float like gentle snowflakes settling quietly. The day's worries melt away, replaced by a calm peace that wraps around you like a warm seal skin. You are safe, you are warm, and the night carries you gently into dreams, where the stories of long ago whisper softly in the Arctic breeze. Sleep well, friend. Until next time.